All right, get up.
No.
Get up.
It's cold.
Get out of bed.
No.
So we're going to my aunt and uncle's house for Thanksgiving, which is in Charlotte. We're gonna rent a car and we're gonna drive from New Bern. And in order to leave the boat, we are going to go ahead and set up a mooring. So first what we have to do is sound the area around us. And we're gonna do that with the sounder that Herby built a few weeks ago in Reedville. So, yeah. There it is.
Our fancy sounder.
The first thing we're gonna do is sound where the anchor is.
Yep. So the idea is we need to have 6 feet of water where it is. That way the boat can swing over it. And then we need 6 feet of water north of there. So we're pretty much gonna sound this whole area out, figure out where our keel can swing, and then set up the mooring so that the boat stays where it's deeper and the anchors are where it's shallower. Those are the so we got 5 feet here. So each knot is 1 fathom, which is 6 feet. So that's about a foot less than it.
So we can't fit here.
Nope. We're gonna use our stern anchor, which is a Fortress Danforth style anchor, as our second anchor in our Bahamian mooring setup. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run it out to further on where it was pretty shallow, and we're gonna set the Fortress anchor where the boat actually can't get into, because it's a lighter anchor, so it makes it easier for us to retrieve it, but it holds really, really well in the mud.
So we sounded over that way and we figured out that it was 5 feet pretty much all around. That's where we're gonna drop this anchor, and Herby's gonna retrieve it off of the stern right now.
Okay. So this is gonna stay on our stern. I'm simply gonna hang the anchor off the stern of the dinghy. And we'll let it pay out as we row away.
This would have been much more easy in the hard dinghy.
Oh yeah. We always do it from a hard dinghy. This is my first time in it.
That's not good.
It's like in a pool toy.
Oh gosh. Okay. You got it.
Yep.
Should I push off?
Nope, nope.
Okay.
Pull the thing. I'm going to set this here for a second.
Okay. Maybe we can just carry it.
It might poke a hole. So through the shackle, put our loop. So I'll just launch it here. So the anchor's hanging down in the water where it can't chafe onto the soft sides of the inflatable dinghy. This is much easier to do with a rigid dinghy because you don't have to worry about anything poking holes in your tiny little soft inflatable sides. But you make do with what you got, and right now our hard dinghy is upside down on the deck and would be really hard to launch just for this purpose. So we're gonna make do in the inflatable. So we got it hanging off the side where it can't get hurt, and we'll go from there. Away we go. Tally-ho!
Oh no.
Right now I'm flaking the line inside the dinghy. That way, as we row away, it pays out. And then it comes out easier. And paying out is simply the act of it coming out of the boat and running away as we move away from it. Now, you might be thinking there's 2 ways to do this. One is dump all the line in the water and just row the anchor away. And as you pull the anchor, it's gonna pull the line away with it. The other option is this, where you keep all the line inside the dinghy. Now this is actually the easier way because of resistance. So if you are paying the line out from the dinghy, you only have to drag the line that's coming right off your back, and then it just stays put and it keeps coming out of the dinghy. If you're dragging the line from the boat, like you just dump everything and start rowing, you have to pull like 100 and some feet of line through the water, and that's really hard to do. So this is the more efficient way of doing it, believe it or not. So to store our extra road, we actually have it go through one of these little air vents in the stern, and there's a 5-gallon bucket with the line coiled inside of it to keep it out of the way. I only keep what we typically use as a stern hook outside. That way it doesn't get as destroyed by UV radiation. So that should be enough. So we're gonna row the anchor out, see how far we can go. Sadly, I don't have foot markers on this, so I can't quite see how much line we have out. So you kind of have to eyeball that. So we're in position, pretty far from the boat, and we got the anchor where we wanted it to be based on the soundings. Just by releasing this line, the anchor goes down to the bottom. So somehow down there the anchor is set, and we hope it's set well. So it's just resting on the bottom. We're going to go back to the boat and pull on it, and that'll get it to set. And then we'll do all the other things we got to do to get the Bahamian mooring set up.
That was exhausting.
So now we have the line run all the way out the stern anchor line, and I'm going to walk it up to the bow and tie it off to a cleat for right now. Now there's a simple way of doing this mooring where you simply have one anchor go off the roller and then the other anchor you just tie to the cleat. It's quick and easy, but if your boat turns a lot with currents and wind reversals, it's going to make a huge mess that you're going to hate to have to unravel later. So we're going to go over a way to avoid that whole issue with this style of mooring. Oh yes, so as you pull it, you can tell if the anchor's setting or not, because it's not coming at me. So the line stretches a lot because it's nylon, has about 20% stretch, but the anchor's not giving way, so it's not coming at me easily. So at this point we are technically set up for the mooring. We have the bow anchor coming off the bow roller, leading back into the windlass, and then we have our stern anchor fed through the bow chock and tied off at the bow cleat. Now this would work at a bare minimum, but here's the problem. When you have tides and stuff and the boat twists and spins, these rods are then going to spin around each other, and the only way to unravel it is to unspin the boat as many number of times as it takes to unravel that mess. So what you need to do is then you have to get your dinghy out with an outboard and push it like if it were a tugboat pushing a giant ship, and you'll just push it in circles until the anchor rods are unraveled. That's a mess. Even if you have a motor on your dinghy, you don't want to have to do that. So the solution is you tie the second anchor rod to the first anchor rod. So we're going to tie the rope to the chain. If you're working with all chain, you'd simply put a shackle through the chain and then attach the other one with that shackle. Since we're doing rope to chain, it's not that big of an issue. So we're just going to tie it off to the chain and then let it back out. So both anchor rods are going to come up together, and then the chain is going to lead up to the boat. And on the chain that leads to the boat, we will put a snubber again to protect all the hardware and allow us some stretch. But that's it. So then as we spin around, nothing really happens with the anchor rods because they're tied to each other, so it's a fixed point. Now, we don't just tie it and dump all this extra anchor rod down in the water because it'll get all messy and stuff. So we do lead it up to the boat, but with slack. And if we have to, we can always just unwrap it around the chain. It's a thing that can be done from the deck by hand. So that's the secret to how to set up a Bahamian mooring system that won't ravel up as you spin around with the tide. So with the primary anchor set and our secondary anchor up that way, I let out a whole bunch of chain on the primary anchor. Now I'm able to pull in on the secondary one to pull us in that direction. Now the way the bottom here is, it gets shallow and then it's too shallow for us, and we'd actually rather be in the shallower part because then we're farther from the channel and away from these giant shrimp boats that have been going by us pretty close. So we're probably going to run aground, but there's no tide here, so it's not a big deal, and the bottom is soft, silty mud. So we're just going to pull probably until we kind of hit bottom, and then we'll set up the rest of the mooring. So letting out some more chain here. That's it. You let out one anchor while you pull in on the other one, and you're pretty much positioning the boat midway between the two of them. So now we have the fortress anchor set with a lot of tension on it. You can see how the anchor rod's coming out and it's long stayed, which means that it comes off the bow and it's just shooting straight out, pretty much horizontally from the bow. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the chain one. We're gonna crank on it till it's tight. What that's gonna do is it's gonna put the boat pretty much in the middle between the two anchor rods. Then we simply tie the rope to the chain at that point and then let the chain out again, put the snubber, and treat it like a normal anchor. That's it. And then you have your Bahamian mooring all set up.
I'd like to note that this is the first time that we're trying this. So if you have any other tips, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, so I've only read about setting up this mooring system, and the two options I've read about are either all chain, where you let out your entire anchor rod and you hook an anchor on each end of the chain, and then you have a swivel in the middle and then a length of chain up to the boat. And we looked at doing that, but the total cost for all those materials is going to be around $200 and some, which is a good chunk out of our $500 monthly budget. So instead we're doing the rope way, which is the other way, because we have it all, so it's cheaper. So yeah, any comments or suggestions, please let us know. So here we're pulled tight, so we're pretty much in the middle between the two anchors where we want to be. And we have the fortress running way off that way with a rope rod, and then the mantis anchor running way far behind us with an all chain rod. So at this point we'll just tie them off and we'll be good to roll. Alright, so we're just going to untie the rope anchor. So I usually tie a magnus hitch to attach rope to chain because it holds really, really well. But we're working in a bite, so I'm going to try to tie a magnus hitch in a bite. Which looks pretty good. So I'm going to give myself a little more on the bite, and then I'll do some half hitches over the anchor rod itself, just to give me a little more insurance. So with a magnus hitch, they work directionally. So when you tie the magnus hitch, you'll have, this is the magnus hitch here, you'll have 2 and 1. The 2 go in the direction of the pull. So in this case it's set up to pull this way. So you have 2 loops, which will actually yank down on it pretty tight and pull. If you're setting it up for a snubber, you'd actually have the 2 on this side and the 1 on this side. That way, as it pulls up, it holds. Now, for this one, we're setting it in this direction because when you think about it, this rope's going to be attached to the anchor and it's going to be yanking on the chain that's going this way. So the direction of pull will be in that direction, so you need to have it oriented properly. If you don't, it slips and the whole thing kind of fails on you in a big way. Now these are just extra, just for insurance. Alright, so that's it. The chain is attached to the rope, so we're just going to let it back out and then run the rope back and tie it off with the cleat and install the snubber. It's almost done.
Okay, he is now tying the snubber.
Yep. So the snubber I also tie with the magnus hitch.
Good old magnus hitch.
Yep.
We can't see anything but your butt.
Yeah, do you want to just come over on this side like that? So here's the magnus hitch. tied as it should be, you have 1 loop and 2. So when the rope is pulled in this direction, the knot actually deforms and it grabs a hold of the chain wonderfully. So this is the knot we've been using instead of a chain hook because it's so easy to put on. And the reason I like this knot over a rolling hitch is this one is so easy to untie. When you're done, you just lift this lip and out it comes apart and you're done. You can take it apart really easily. So off goes the snubber. Whole process of setting up a mooring. That way you can safely leave your boat without worrying about anchor dragging or any sort of issue like that, because you know it'll be well anchored and well protected. Now, it would have been a lot easier to simply throw out a stern anchor and call it a day, and that would be it. If you did that, you'd want to make sure that your bow and stern anchors are set with and against the tide. That way, no matter which way the tide's going, your boat will be in line with the tide, because the issue with 2 anchors is it's actually easier to drag 2 anchors than it is to drag 1 anchor. So if the boat has 1 anchor, it's always going to point into the wind or the current. So as those shift, the boat will turn as well. So what's presented to the wind and current is actually the smallest surface area possible. So, or frontal surface area. So the bow of the boat, if you look at it straight on, the widest the boat is going to be is only the beam. Now if the boat is tied sideways, there's a whole lot more surface area presented here. So the issue is if you're in a storm and the wind starts blowing sideways on your boat, you're presenting a lot more resistance on those anchors, and the 2 anchors will actually drag as you move sideways through the water. It's really bad. So setting up a mooring counteracts that issue, because now the boat is able to swing in 360 degrees without getting hooked up on windage issues. So you're able to move. And then the other huge advantage, which is a little bit of a sad advantage, is you are better off in a collision. So say someone doesn't notice you, they're drunk, whatever, they hit you. If your boat is tied with 2 anchors, you're stuck and you're going to absorb the full force of that impact, and it's going to cause damage to your boat. If you're with a mooring system like this, you're able to swing. So you're going to get hit, you're still going to get damage, but the boat's able to deflect some of that damage and transfer it, instead of into destruction, into kinetic energy. And that will simply move your boat out of the way, which hopefully decreases the amount of damage to something not so serious. So those are the reasons to set up a mooring. And the other big advantage of a mooring over simply 2 anchors, like I was saying, if there's a side wind, is you're always pulling on 1 anchor more than another. So if we set the anchors up north-south, because here the winds blow either from the north or from the south. So if it's coming out of the north, we are riding on 1 anchor, the other anchor is just hanging out doing nothing. Then as the wind shifts, we spin around, now we're pulling on the other one. So that's the whole advantage of everything. Now, it's really important to know your math and to do your math ahead of time when you're setting up a mooring, because it pays off big time. You saw us putting out all this line and everything. If we hadn't done the math and we didn't have enough scope, imagine how hard it would be to add 10 more feet of scope to one of the anchors. You'd have to pull everything up, undo it all, and do it again. We don't want to do that. So when you set up a mooring, it's really important to know the depth where each anchor is going to be placed. That way you have it set up with the appropriate amount of scope. Since it's a mooring, we also set up with extra scope. So at the current moment, we have 100 feet of chain, or 100 feet out on the bow anchor, and well over 100 feet on the stern anchor. So that's always a huge advantage. We tied the anchors together at the 80-foot mark. So right there's 80 feet, and then I let out an additional 20, and then I tied the snubber and ran that up. So in actuality, we have more around 120 feet. So you always want to make sure that you have the minimum number of feet needed for the scope. That way you won't be dragging, because 2 anchors set up inappropriately is still a bad setup.
I'm going to draw a visual representation of everything we just did because I'm a visual learner and I learn better with pictures, so maybe some of you do too. Basically, if this is our boat, we had the bow anchor coming out right here, and then we had the stern anchor which came out to like there, let's just say. So what we did is we actually attached the stern anchor here on the bow anchor so that you get this set up. Now this allows for the boat to swivel around, so let's say the boat swings to here, then the tension's going to be on this anchor here, but it's still going to stay in place, and it can even come down to here, and nothing will get twisted up. So it's a really surefire way to make sure that your boat stays around the same place, and as you saw, it didn't take too much effort or time. And this way, we've got all this leeway to spin around and we'll remain all right.
Now, some important things to do when you set up the actual system. This is a drawing, so it's not the scale, but you want to make sure that the anchor is beyond your boat. The reason is, if you swing over the anchor and your keel hits the anchor for whatever reason, it can actually pull it out of the bottom, and then that anchor is no longer set. So you want to make sure that the anchors extend beyond your stern in your full arc of swing. The other thing you want to make sure is that both lines tie off to that point, and you have one line under load coming up. And that line you attach your snubber, because you still need a snubber for the elastic effect attached to it. If you attach both anchor lines to your bow, it's easy. But as the boat swings, they're going to twist and hockle up, and it's going to make a disaster. So that's the general setup, and it's pretty easy to do.
So the first thing we did when we came to Oriental is we asked if they had any Chinese or Japanese restaurants.
No, we just asked Chinese.
We did just ask Chinese, and the answer was no. But we found that in the very back of this restaurant, M&M, they're apparently serving sushi on occasion. So we got lucky, came here, and they're selling sushi, so gotta have some sushi in Oriental. Ta-da!
Last sushi.
I'm not going anywhere yet. So go say bye. I'm going to register.
Oh man, this afternoon we're gonna make some cute little animals. We need to get our medals. Yeah.
Back on the boat, and we have some projects we gotta take care of.
Thanks so much for watching. And if you want to become a sailing buddy, you can click the link down below to our Patreon account.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And when you click subscribe, make sure you click on the little bell in the annotation. That way you get notifications as soon as our next video is uploaded.
Thanks so much.